You might think that the title is clickbait and you think there's absolutely no way that Tabata is going to kill off the second main character of the series, but did you know that he was actually planning on killing off Yuno as early as the dungeon exploration arc? That's right, we could have been in a timeline where Yuno did not exist. Think about it. If Tabata was willing to kill Yuno that early, it stands to reason that Yuno's death remains a very real possibility in the current storyline. The fact that he didn't go through with it back then does not mean that he abandoned the idea entirely. It just might mean that he was saving it for a more impactful moment. And what could be more impactful than during the final battle against Lucius Zogratis? Before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe, and with that out of the way, let's dive into this theory that's been kind of keeping me up at night. Let's start by establishing just how special Yuno truly is in the world of Black Clover. Yuno isn't just one of the most powerful characters in the series at the moment, he's what Lucius himself refers to as the Singularity. Born with two souls in one body and the Prince of the Spade Kingdom, Yuno possesses both star magic and wind magic. When the elf arc ended, we saw that every single dead elf soul departed for the heavens, with the exception of the Third Eye and Patri, all four of whom we were given a reason for, but we also saw that Yuno's elf soul did not disappear. We brushed it off at the time, of course, but once we saw him receive the Sprayed Grimoire, we saw Yuno also using both magic types. This stood out as really odd to me. The elves never used both their own magic and the human's magic simultaneously ever. This was unique to Yuno, and then of course we had the incredible moment of Yuno talking to himself. That is, the human Yuno soul talking to the elf Yuno soul. The question that I was asking myself after all of that was, why did Tabata make Yuno so special? But then I realized that's such a vague question, so let's try this. Why is Yuno being born with two souls more special than Lucius being born with two souls, or Patri being born with two souls, or hell, the other elves? That's when I realized that I was asking the wrong questions because I was not looking at the big picture. I needed to find the right question. I only had half of the puzzle, but let me give you a spoiler before I do that though. The answer to the question that we've not yet asked is the title of this video. The answer is because Yuno will die. So, what was I missing? The question I had was related to the dual soul nature of Yuno, which was one half of the puzzle, but the other half required me to think about star magic and everything related to it because it's far more significant than people realize. In chapter 309, we get a fascinating glimpse into the history of the Spade Kingdom's royal line, where Tabata hints at selective breeding occurring within the Spade royalty, specifically to birth an heir with star magic. Why go to such lengths? I believe there might be an ancient prophecy about the birth of a star prince who would defend the world against the end of the world. This obviously isn't explicitly stated in the manga, but the evidence strongly points towards this direction. We already know that prophecies about the end of the world exist in Black Clover's universe, specifically the Leviathan one, and Lucius's Judgment Day seems to be fulfilling that prophecy, wherein Leviathan woke up when the end of the world, that is the Judgment Day, as coined by Lucius, was nigh. It's reasonable then that there could also be other prophecies specifically related to the destruction of the world in other parts of the world. This idea gains even more weight when we consider Lucius's own words. Lucius has seen countless possible futures, yet he still refers to Yuno as his rival. This suggests that in every future Lucius has witnessed, Yuno remains an obstacle, never an ally, always the final individual that needs to be defeated. This consistency across multiple timelines indicates that Yuno is destined to stand against the end of the world as the prophesied star prince in every single future. I think this prophecy was actually told to Yuno and is an important part of the Spade Kingdom's culture. What do I mean by that? There's a crucial moment in chapter 331 that many readers overlook because it's overshadowed by the Lucius reveal at the chapter's end. In this chapter, Yuno meets his mother for the first time, and she tells him that there are many important things that she must share with him, even if he might not be ready to accept them. The next panel is subtly grayed out, indicating that Yuno was indeed told something significant. While we might assume that this was simply about Yuno needing to become the king of the Spade Kingdom, I believe it was so much more profound. It's highly likely that Yuno's mother informed him of his destiny as the world's savior when the apocalypse arrives. Now, coupled with the uniqueness of his own two-soul birth in comparison to the rest, where the elf soul Yuno is so closely tied to the incredibly eventful moments in the history of Black Clover, and him being a four-leaf clover user, the son of the leader of the elves, and the one bound to the wind spirit Sylph, and the fact that the human soul is also so closely tied to the incredible eventful moments in the future of Black Clover this time, where he was literally bred to be the defender of the world as the son of royalty, we see a theory take shape, where the question I asked before becomes much more focused when the second half is added to the puzzle. When Elf Yuno is already so special, why would Tabata make the human Yuno so much more special still? You already know the answer to that question. It's because Yuno will die. Alright, yes, that's an easy answer to a question we've put some effort into asking, so let's break down that answer. We've seen throughout the battle that Lucius has been attempting to touch his opponents to manipulate their souls. Since Yuno has two souls, he represents a unique target for Lucius's abilities. Who would his magic attack, the elf or the human? In the many futures that Lucius saw, one that was shared with us in particular is the future where Yuno trained his star magic abilities to the fullest. In this future though, Lucius appears to have won against him. I think we can take it for granted that star magic isn't something that he's specifically worried about. Given that, and the fact that the combo spell from Yuno is pretty much carrying the remaining forces of the Clover Kingdom, Yuno needs to be taken out of the picture. The latest chapter ends off in a cliffhanger where Lucius disappears after Yuno deals what he thought was a final blow, and we hear something big happening in the background, like heartbeats. Lucius knows the importance of Asta, but the immediate opponent to take out that will result in widespread advantage for Lucius is Yuno. He most definitely is going to target Yuno, and I believe that once he does touch Yuno, one of two souls will die. As we touched on earlier, Tabata has been extremely explicit in the importance of the human soul to the plot now. This makes it extremely clear that Yuno's elf soul, no longer having plot importance, will be the one to be killed, perhaps sacrificing himself as Lucius's touch attempts to turn Yuno into a paladin. The death of Yuno's elven soul wouldn't just be narratively impactful, it would bring a certain cosmic balance. Since the elf reincarnation arc, this soul has remained unnaturally tethered to the living world while all the other elf souls return to the afterlife. Though this connection has benefited Yuno tremendously, there's something ethically fitting about allowing this ancient soul to finally rest and reunite with its original family in the afterlife, even if the separation would devastate Yuno. This is the best of both worlds for Tabata when it comes to focusing on Yuno's character. With the tender moment between the elf soul and the human soul in the Spade arc, we know that Yuno is now proven that even though he was so isolated by the position he was placed into by society, that he was never alone. And the loss of that soul would mean that Yuno loses that connection that he has had with him since birth, not to mention access to wind magic and by extension his connection to Bel, the wind spirit Sylph. This death, which is the destruction of one of Yuno's souls, would be a very clever way for Tabata to fulfill his initial plans to kill Yuno without actually removing him from the story, while also simultaneously creating incredible dramatic tension for Yuno's character, which would also help with closing out his character arc, where he loses the four-leaf clover grimoire, his other half, and the wind spirit, leaving only the human Yuno left. This severance of Yuno's connection with Bel would be particularly heartbreaking as well. Bel has been with Yuno since his early days as a magic knight, growing alongside him from a tiny sprite to a very powerful spirit. She's witnessed every moment of his growth, celebrated his victories, and suffered through his defeats. Their extremely strong bond allowed Yuno to achieve true saint stage once he understood his elven soul. This also aligns perfectly with Tabata's storytelling patterns. He frequently introduces setbacks that force characters to dig deeper and evolve. Look at Yuno himself. When he first faced Zenon, he was utterly defeated. At that moment, Bel's emotional cries at losing him were incredibly impactful, and for Yuno to have climbed this far and to lose half of himself would be an incredible blow to his character. The loss against Zenon pushed him to grow stronger, and to lose all that to Lucius would be devastating. So, we saw how this theory works from a character writing perspective, but I feel like from a narrative perspective, this development is almost inevitable. Since Judgment Day began, our heroes have been maintaining an impressive winning streak against overwhelming odds, with Jack's death being the only significant loss. Right now, the battle doesn't even seem unfair. It feels like Lucius is the underdog in this scenario. This momentum can't realistically continue because compelling storytelling demands major setbacks to maintain tension. The loss of Yuno's elven soul would create perfect dramatic balance. It would be significant enough to raise the stakes dramatically without permanently removing a key character from the story, which, as we know, is what Tabata's writing style looks like with regards to removing character from the story, especially important ones. So what could create more tension than seeing Asta's rival and the army's current greatest asset suddenly stripped of half of his power and emotionally devastated? If this were to happen, think about it. The one saving grace for humans would be disabled. The death of Yuno's elven soul would completely disable the Neverland combo spell that has been keeping Lucius at bay. The fallout from losing the Neverland would be catastrophic. Citizens who were protected by the spell would suddenly be vulnerable again, resulting in a drastic setback for our heroes and a lot more to do rather than just fight. Not only does this mark doom, this would in fact provide a larger narrative canvas for Tabata, creating the perfect opportunity for other powerful characters like the Ryuzen 7, who I've always expected to play a role in the Battles of Judgment Day because they were introduced so late, to be honest, to make their appearance and join the fight, bringing fresh dynamics to the story. Although Yuno would definitely be mentally broken, we need to remember that this world is the one that Asta himself shaped. Yuno might be broken, might be depressed, might stay down, but it's never going to be the final beat for the character as long as Asta is in the picture. Taking Yuno out of the spotlight for just a while would be a great narrative move wherein the story would now actually create space for Asta to shine as the one true protagonist, allowing him to face Lucius solo for a while. After all, this is ultimately Asta's story. This is Black Clover. This would also bring in the idea that killing Lucius would ultimately mean killing Julius. Will Asta go for such a possibility? It is extremely unlikely, and if it was as easy as killing Julius, I think we would have already had that happen. So Asta, now understanding the dynamics of dual souls in one body, would bring in a completely nuanced approach to the defeat of Lucius. Additionally, this loss would forever change Yuno, potentially making him more vulnerable, adding further dimensions to this already fantastic character. It would be the perfect setup for his final evolution as a character, losing his four-leaf clover grimoire, but forcing him to solely rely on the power that was always meant to be his destiny, star magic. Mastering star magic to provide crucial support in landing the final blow against Lucius would also honor both characters' journeys while still maintaining Asta's position as the primary hero. So, to sum it all up, I believe that Lucius will succeed in touching Yuno and using soul magic to destroy his elven soul. This won't kill Yuno completely, but will remove half his power and create a major setback in the fight against Lucius. It will provide the dramatic tension needed at this point in the story while still allowing Yuno to fulfill his destiny as the Star Prince who will save the world, just in a way that none of us expected. The fallout will allow Asta to take center stage as the main character before Yuno returns with his mastered star magic to help land the decisive blow against Lucius. This would satisfy both narrative arcs while delivering on Tabata's apparent long-standing consideration of killing Yuno in some form. Wow, that was a long recording session. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like content like this, if you like theories, analysis, and things like that, things of that nature, especially for Black Clover, make sure to check out all my other videos and subscribe for a lot more because Black Clover is almost back, man. Less than a month, man. We're gonna get a crazy plot twist, man. All right, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.